Welcome to another amazing day at fmtraining.tv. My name is Margaret. I'll be your broadcast engineer for today. Welcome, people. This will be our last stream of this week, just letting you know now. Because for the Americans that are watching us and presenting with us, basically, stream will be done due to Thanksgiving. So let me pull up the schedule so you can see that actually being the case. To go check us out. So basically today we are here with the wonderful Jake Scheele discussing a really cool, more intermediate, maybe semi-advanced FileMaker concept. Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday this week are not going to we're not going to be here. If you show up, we won't be here. There will be nothing happening. So letting you know that right now. We'll all be off stuffing ourselves with turkey, mashed potatoes, and other traditional American Thanksgiving foods. If you'd like to support the channel, please let us know. We have our FM Training annual subscription bundles. There are 3 options. This version over here comes with FileMaker. I highly recommend it. Every once in a while, I'll get people going like, man, your streams are really cool, but I really hate their format because we ask questions in the middle of streams. Presenters will sometimes get sidetracked. They'll have little discussions in between. It's the nature of being live. You're like, I really want to cover this topic in really short, cohesive time period. This is one of the options that you can do. Basically, they're like short little cohesive videos. And they're like 15 to like 20 to 30 minutes long at the longest. They can also be shorter than that. They're highly animated. Richard is generally the presenter, so you won't be bored. And we cover pretty much every topic. We talk about server, WebDirect, Go, all parts of FileMaker, relationships, scripting, variables, calculations, you name it, we talk about it. So with that being said, if you like to support the channel, feel free to do that. We always appreciate it. People who have bought it, thank you very much. Okay. Now that we're done here, I'm going to introduce my 2 people. I have Jake Scheele today, our presenter, one of our engineers, and then Christian Olson, one of our senior engineers, who is here to help out if needed. So, Jake, Christian, who are you and what are we doing today?
Hey, so I threw together a little demo pretty recently. I kind of stumbled upon this method to make a grid of portals in FileMaker, and that's something I've wanted to be able to do for years and didn't really think it was possible. So I was really excited when I stumbled on this, and I figured it would be a good thing to share. And I showed it off during one of our morning meetings, and Christian hasn't stopped bugging me about it since.
Yeah, by he means I thought it'd be really cool for Jake to come share it. So thank you, Jake.
So yeah, we can go ahead and jump into it. I'll share my screen. And I think first I'll show a little bit about just kind of an example of what it could look like. And then I'll dive a little bit into how it works and what the real secret sauce is that makes it go. So this is a grid of related records, and it runs with just one relationship. What is really cool about this is if I resize the window, it will determine how wide the window is and how many columns and rows should fit in the grid and adjust it accordingly. And renumber everything and have them in the correct sorted order. And yeah, there's a layout size change trigger that makes that work. Going into behind the scenes, like I said, it's only one relationship that makes this work. We've got 2 tables, home and grid, and it's just an ID constant to ID constant. Nothing crazy going on with the relationship there. I'll show the developer fields in a second. So we've got the 2 globals that determine how many columns and how many rows should be displayed. So we'll back out of manage database. And if I do show dev fields, that's where we've got those 2 globals. So whenever we adjust that, those numbers in the corner will get recalculated to whatever related record number should be showing here. So I'll hop into layout mode. And how I've got this working is I do have one portal for each column. The portals are anchored to the top and bottom. So when it expands vertically, it'll show more rows there. And what makes it work is there's a filter on each portal. And they all have an identical filter on there. It does get into a little bit more advanced techniques, so I'll try to take this a little slowly. And Christian, feel free to interject if you have any valuable comments. The one thing that's different with each filter that's on each portal is the column number. So you would just change, column 4, change that to a 4, and so on and so forth. What this is doing is it takes a list of all related primary keys and finds that record's position in that list. And then it uses the modulo function, which returns the remainder when divided by a certain number. So if we take that position in the found set and divide it by the number of columns that they are, whatever the remainder is which column that record should fall into. And I had to play around with this for I think it was 3 hours to actually get that function working. So I think that's the best way to explain it. But like I said, there's a lot going on there. So get out of this calculation. One real trick thing that I have going is there is an additional filter that's on the portal. In order to grab that, I had to fetch the list of primary keys a little differently. I couldn't just reference the field. I can show you what field I have too. One of the main things that makes it work. I hop into manage database, the grid table, and I recommend having this field, and I have it in just about every single table that I have in FileMaker, is a summary field, list of primary key. I found tons of uses for having a summary field with that assigned to it. And that's the field that we're referencing, and that's how I grab the list of related primary keys. So we'll back out of here. I actually have a hidden portal that's in the background, and inside of that portal is a button bar. And there's a button bar because I needed a calculation. What is inside that calculation is just that field, the ZIDs, the list of related primaries. And what's real trick about that is this portal is filtered. If I were to reference that ZID field outside of the portal, it doesn't apply any of those filters to it. And I want to make sure I get the correct found set.
Jay, can you elaborate on that? Why is it that if you just ask for that field, you don't get the same results versus when it's like the object in the portal?
Yeah, it might be easier to demonstrate too. If I throw a field on the layout and just do that ZIDs, might use the data viewer too. It might be a little easier to look at. Yeah, I'll just throw that in the data viewer. And then maybe even seeing the value count, the number of related records that we get. So there's 21. And it might be a little easier to see why the found sets are different too. When I initially built this, it was for a navigation menu for users to be able to navigate to certain places. And there would be hide conditions on there because maybe only administrators can access the users module, or only certain privilege sets can access certain things. So I have hide conditions that hide based on whatever you put in here. And that's what's being evaluated here. It needs to be evaluated in real time. It can't be done through a relationship because it would be an unstored calculation field, which of course can't be used in a relation. So if I actually populate one of these global variables, it'll hide a couple of them. Let me move this off to the side. Or we'll even just change a couple of these zeros to ones so that it hides them. So now the users in audit log aren't showing anymore. So looking at the value count of the related records, that's not going to give us all the correct primary keys that we want. Let me go back here. I'm going to copy the get layout object attribute. There we go. So that kind of, I hope, demonstrates this a little bit. I'll explain it now that I have it displayed on here. If I reference the field ZIDs, which is a list of all the related primary keys, it gives me 21 results, but that doesn't filter out the ones that I want to hide. So by referencing this field inside of a portal that has the filter I want to narrow down those records by, I can reference that field with a get layout attribute. Instead of directly referencing the field, I'm referencing an object that contains the field inside of the filtered portal. And then it will return the narrowed down found set. That is totally a mouthful. But that's really the trick of what makes a lot of this work, is that there is a second portal hidden in the background that has the filter applied to it with an object inside of the portal that has the field. That's the summary list of primary keys, and we reference that object instead of referencing that field. Christian, any comments on that? Like I said, that is a mouthful.
No, I was saying I saw someone type in a question. I was going to wait to see what that is.
Yeah, I was also hovering. That's why there was like a weird silence. I was waiting for the question to be finished typing, because I sensed them coming. It's definitely not intuitive. Not that that's bad.
No,
but...
I don't disagree with you at all there. Yeah, like I said, when I was first setting this up, it took me like 3-4 hours to get something that actually worked here, and when I did, I was jumping off the walls with excitement.
Yeah, Code to Go is like, that's really complex. Can you go over that again, please? Yes. So, now that I am done explaining to my Discord people what is up with the sound, Jake, if you would like to reshare your screen again and start from the very beginning and go through it again, please do that. This is really cool. Like, legitimately, this is very cool.
Yeah, I'm going to try to pick it apart a little bit, too, and try to go through recreating it a little bit towards the end. I think that will be helpful, too.
Yes. Yeah, pick it apart and then maybe like build a very small one for us. Like that's like 4 or something. I don't know. So
here, I'm gonna mess around a little bit. We'll make a new layout that I can just slap some information on for you that will hopefully be helpful. So here is that. Awesome. That portal being locked prevented it from being deleted, which is awesome. I'm gonna make this a little bit more visible. Oh, it did delete the object inside a little. That's okay. Go back here. This is the magic button bar. Paste that in and make it a little bit more visible. And then we'll do a copy of it that just shows the value count. Well, just scoop that over. And then I'll reference that field directly. So we'll go over what this field is first, because I think that is pretty important. Okay, there we go. I'll stick this off to the side. And then we'll have one more layout that just shows us the related records we're looking at. Okay, so here's the good we got hanging out over here, kind of showing under the hood of what we're looking at. The field, we'll look at the field again. These are the related records I'm looking at. So if you're looking on one table, you want to look at any related records in grid view, you want to make sure you've got a field that is a list of primary key. Every table should already have a primary key. We just want a summary field that's a list of that primary key. And when I reference that field, it's going to give me all records in that table, because our relationship is just ID constant to ID constant. There's all 21 records from the grid table that show up right here. Now this portal has a filter applied to it. In this case, which whatever portal you're filtering, you might be filtering it for one reason or another. And of course, if you have your filtering done in the relationship, it's kind of one step that is not needed. But if we do what it does is it evaluates the hide condition. And the hide condition is just a field right here. So this will return true or false as to whether or not a record should be hidden. And we've got these two that just have true. So those are going to be hidden all the time. But some of these, this one hides if you're on a desktop layout. This one hides if you're on iPhone. I've got different things that I put in here when I was using this. But when it evaluates that through the filtered portal, it doesn't give me all 21. It gives me the 18 that I actually care about, that I actually want to see. So I'm trying to think of where to go next here. There's so many moving parts to this demo.
Does this work on iOS and like iPads?
Yeah, I tested it on our iPad. When I rotated the screen, it adjusted accordingly and calculated the number of rows. And we tested it on iPad or desktop, or sorry, Windows. I'm on a Mac, and did host this on a server. I think one good thing to explain would be this calculation. Basically, what I'm trying to do when I calculate these 1 through 18 numbers right here is, sorry, I'm trying to think of the best way to explain this, because that calculation is not a simple one.
So why don't you go through this step by step and explain what each step is doing? Like the calculation. If you want to bring up the calculation again and explain like what each step the calculation is doing.
Sure. And it might even be beneficial to see this piece by piece in the data viewer. So right now this is returning, and this should change if I click on a different. This would be easier if we weren't looking at primary keys, but I think it should still make some sense. Right now, the values is that list of all primary keys that are related. And the value is the one primary key that we're looking at through the relationship. So, of course, each record is going to have its own primary key. The position is going to give us which number in that list. So in this case, we're looking for 92C5. That's easy. It's right at the top. It's number 1. But as this is evaluated for each record, it will return. It's kind of like a get portal row number, which is a function I really wish existed natively in FileMaker. But it'll give you the position in the related records that record falls in. It's kind of like the get record number or get portal number for the portal. And then the modulo, that's where it does get kind of weird. It returns the remainder. So in this case, the position, if we're looking at record, let's say we're looking at record 9, and this might be a little easier to look at if there's less rows. So let's bring it down to, or columns, we'll bring it down to 3 columns. And then pull back up that data viewer. And I had to do a lot of like thinking of examples to position this right. If we're looking at record 5, we need to determine which column that's in. So what I want for record 2, record 5, record 8, and record 11, those should all return column 2, and so on and so forth. So I had divided the position that a record falls in the found set by the number of columns that there are. So if I'm looking at record 5, 5 divided by 3 has a remainder of 2. And that's what that modulo function will give you. And that is the column that I want.
Does that make sense, everyone watching?
I hope so. I'm thinking about explaining it another time because like I said, I spent so long trying to get this figured out. It hurt my brain a lot to figure it out. So I can imagine it's hurting everyone's brain that's following along.
How hard is this if we don't understand all the code, Jake, to actually configure and use?
It's a lot of copy pasting. I already did the hard part. So if I were to set up like a brand new grid, pretty much the hardest part is making your one portal look exactly how you want it to, because you're going to duplicate it a bunch of times. And then if you need to edit it later on, you need to edit 15 portals instead of editing 1. So I made sure I spent a decent amount of time, and I definitely had to redo it a couple times anyway, making that first portal look perfect. I could potentially pull up an example. Basically, when you're implementing this, the main thing that you want to have is you start off by having the field list of primary key in your related table. And on your parent table, you've got your 2 globals, the G grid columns and G grid rows. Once those fields exist, you can go in and place a portal, and you can just have like the demo pulled up on the side and have your database pulled over and copy the filter that's on this portal. The portal is going to be one row with anchoring on the top bottom, and just copy paste this filter where you've got your G grid columns, your ID primary from the related table. Honestly, you don't need this evaluate hide condition. If you already had a filter applied to that portal, that's where you would put it though, is where any filter that you want, a custom filter, that's where you could put that there. And then once you've got this portal looking perfect, exactly how you want it to, you can just copy paste it, drag it off to the side, and then renumber your filter. So this is whichever column number that you have. And then as many columns as you want. I think I put 16 on this one. You can only do 3 or 6 or however many you want. And as the layout gets bigger, it'll then expand the portals. One tricky thing I did notice is with any portal that goes off of the layout, FileMaker will not render things that are off of the layout, I've noticed. So I actually had to make the portal wider to make it touch somewhere on the layout. It just can't, like if it was like this, it wouldn't work. It needs to be past this point. Actually, it has to be on the layout. I'd say that was the most tedious part of it. Like if I were to add an extra row right now, looks like we're on row 16. If I wanted to add a 17th row, take my portal, copy paste it, drag it right off to the side. It is a little bit easier with this one because I made sure that each portal was exactly 100 by 100. So the math is pretty easy for me. I'll make it 100 wider. Select everything that's inside the portal and then move it over by 100. What was it before? 1629. So I'll go to 1729 and then drag it back over 100 points. What was it before? 17, go to 217. So that would be the most tedious part. And then of course, changing 16 to a 17 in here.
And Margaret, it does look like that's a question in Discord.
Yeah, we do. We just saw it. So
icons that don't fit.
I must have missed it, but how does it deal with icons that don't fit?
Icons that don't fit. So not entirely sure what you mean by that question. What I have in here is a container. That's what you mean by the icon that's in here. So I put in custom PNG images for those. I see James is typing, so that's why there's the silence. You have 16 icons. If you make the two, oh yeah, good question. They don't display would be the short answer. So I have 16 icons right now. For example, I have 12 of them that appear, but there's more than 12 related records. They right now just don't appear. You need to have enough there. I know.
Yeah, because you can't scroll with this because that would be too difficult to actually manage.
Correct. Yeah, I would only scroll one of these rows at a time instead of all of them. Yep.
So that's kind of well, is there a way to put a limit on like a window so you can't make it too small? Is that even an option in FileMaker?
Well, so what I have going on with the layout size change trigger, and you can customize that however you want. This is the script trigger that's on this layout whenever the size is changed. So on an iPad or iPhone, when the device is rotated, if we expand the layout, that script trigger will fire. And I have max columns and min columns are parameters that you can pass to this. And I'll definitely want to go through that script parameters. There's some tidbits to it to determine the height and the width. But I have the minimum set to 3, I believe, and but that's just for the columns. It doesn't have anything for the rows for the minimum or maximum. I think a good possible solution that I would want to think about adding to the future, James, to add to your comment of things not being visible when there's not enough space for them, maybe a pager where we can have like previous and next buttons that go to the next or previous page of these related things, which could be really beneficial if we're looking at things like photos or related documents. Have little PDFs in here, have a little, a container that has almost like a mini gallery. I know I definitely took some inspiration from Nick's FM gallery for this.
Comment from Code to Go. That's odd. I thought the portal filter didn't reduce the number of related records, just the number shown. Cool that it works though.
Yeah, but that's what's nice with this being able to work off of a single relationship is all the related records are still there. We're just choosing which related records we want to display in each portal. And each portal is basically just another column. We only want column 2, only column 3. So let's look at the script trigger that's on here really quick. I tried to comment it pretty well. One thing that script determines is the number of rows and columns that there should be based on the size of the layout. And then it actually snaps the layout to the closest one so that you don't have half of a record showing. I can kind of demonstrate that too. Like if I scroll and I'm like halfway in between 3 and 4, it'll find whichever one's the closest and bring it to what it thinks it should be. It'll round to the nearest edge. And to do that, I had to put in a couple different parameters of the height and width of each grid item of each portal. And then I also have the height and width of the entire layout itself. And then I did a bunch of math to figure out how many there should be. So looking at that script parameter, it's also on record load. It's on record load and on layout size change. So it is a list. We've got the portal height, the portal width, the horizontal space, the vertical space, the max columns, and the minimum columns. So with the horizontal and vertical space, we've got the width or the height of the layout minus the width or the height of the portal. So in this case, I took the entire height of the layout, which is 230, and subtracted the 100 to get 130, and then took the entire width of the layout, 340, and subtracted the width of the portal, which was 240. So there's a little bit of math involved to get it working, but that's how it knows how big the layout needs to be. It calculates that out. And I tested it on a couple different portals that I have on existing solutions, and it did seem to implement pretty well. I was pretty happy with it. But if you have any issues, feel free to bug me about it. I'd be happy to fix anything.
What are some of the known limitations, Jake? I think you've already kind of discussed some of them, but would you use this everywhere that you need portals and you go, you know what, instead of a vertical one, I'm just going to go horizontal? I'll help you. The answer is no.
Well, yeah, the answer is definitely no. I'm trying to think of any specific limitations I've had.
Didn't you tell us that the number of related records at a certain point can be an issue?
Yeah, here, let me pull up my or not my demo, but where I was
maybe if
it.
the number of records you have exceeds what you were likely to draw the grid for. Like I noticed right off the bat, what you have there looks a lot like kind of like what we have at the home screen of starting point for icons for navigation. That seems like a real good use case for this. Maybe general buttons, almost like a user panel, seems really useful for it. I really like the fact that you've got this working on an iPad and iOS where you can get some expansion. If the horizontal expansion is really wide, maybe that could be an issue there. And then so the other question I was going to ask too is, if you kind of know where you would use this versus where you want to use it.
I mean, I definitely wouldn't show it on a list of anything that's very data-driven elements. Like if I'm looking at invoices or estimates or jobs, those don't seem like fitting elements. The first thing that I thought of when I built this was a navigation and having it customizable by, especially on different devices. I wanted to show different number of rows per devices. One thing I wanted to try out more was documents and like related PDFs. And I noticed when running locally, that was running really well. When I had it hosted on a server, that's when I actually, it's funny that we had brought up the multiple different pages, because that was something I did try out a little bit with the documents. I started to see performance limitations when I had, I think it was 50 related records, and it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great. It definitely added a second or two of lag that we don't like to see.
Because fortunately, in your actual example, you are using a hosted file here, because that was one of my first questions for you. How does this respond hosted?
One thing I played around with that I didn't get crazy far with, but I thought I'd at least show you guys, gotcha, is I took this demo and I thought, well, if this is a grid, a calendar is basically a grid. And I know we already have an add-on for a calendar, and that's awesome. I just thought I'd play around with it, see if I'd get anywhere with it. And this was what I put together. I was having a problem getting having related events show up on the calendar, which of course is like half the use, not more than half. That's like the whole point of a calendar, is being able to show events on there. I got as far as putting the dates in the correct places for whichever month you're viewing. I might get there with it. I might be back in a couple months with a calendar demo. Right now, I don't think it's worth too much. But yeah, I thought it was a cool idea of somewhere to go with this grid concept.
There was just kind of a comment from David, which I don't know if you have Discord open, Jake, so you can see it. This can be done in FM, have a portal with more fields that can be seen in a display. Christian, you going to say something?
Yeah, so Jake, David wants to know why it is you can't just scroll from left to right. So I think your portal has up to 15 icons or something like that, but if you only have 12, some of them are getting cut off. And so you want to know why when you can't just scroll from right to left. Do you want to try to just illustrate that?
Sorry, I think I'm a little confused. So instead of just scrolling from left to right, I'm reading.
Can you do this for me real quick? And your script trigger might prevent you. Can you make the window really small, like smaller than its kind of minimum width?
I can shut off.
Not in there you
for
go.
a minute.
Because you have at least 3, perfect. And then in browse mode, can you make it less wide than 3? Okay, and now you can scroll left to right. Yeah, you'd have to use the script. So see that, David? How the scroll bar shows up. And so go back to layout mode there, Jake, and then make that window just slightly. Yes. So you're fine. You're fine. Go back to how it was. So to kind of just answer that question, I'm understanding it correctly. If you have a window where you're not opening it to the full width, you're going to get a horizontal scroll bar. But what you're doing that's interesting here, Jake, is beyond the third portal, they're actually off of the screen, and you're doing some trickery, some hackery, where you're resizing it as it grows left to right. But unfortunately, even if you go to browse mode, go and jump to browse, there is no left to right in the current position because the window's actually already at its maximum width. In fact, you've expanded it
maximum width.
So David, I don't know if that's helpful in explaining why it's not doing what we want. All of us in the file community would love FileMaker to just make a portal that can scroll left and right as you can up and down. It's one of the reasons when Jake showed this that I find it to be interesting, because it's one of the most requested features from FileMaker well before my time even in the community is to give us something like that. So I've done things in the past to try to do what Jake has done, and each of them has limitations. And they each have some kind of cool features to it. So when Jake showed this, I was like, oh, that's neat. Everyone, like, I actually had a situation earlier this week where I have a client that is a document manager, and he really would prefer it to look like a 4-square grid. And I thought about even using what you have, because he wants to be able to draw the window and have it grow horizontally as well as vertically. However, because he doesn't have a static number of images for the photo types, I felt that this unfortunately would have its own. I couldn't use this. I need to use the scroll bar, which the client doesn't love. He doesn't want one column, but I can't make dual scrolling columns because then you end up seeing the same images. So this suits certain things. It's, I think, very cool, especially how responsive it is. The fact, like, a couple things that I think people could take out of Jake's file here without even reusing the full implementation is, number one, any of you who are familiar with filtering know that when you look through the relationship, you get everything on the other side. It's the difference between filtering and having a normal relationship. But Jake has found a trick so that you can actually just see the filter data. That beyond even the grid is pretty neat. The second thing that I'm going to steal from you one day, Jake, is trying to get these screens to snap to the correct sizes is a real pain in the butt. If any of you guys have ever tried to open a window and you want it centered in the screen, I mean, unless you're a pretty experienced guru, it seems it's so much harder than it seems like it should be.
Even if you are experienced, I still struggle. It takes me longer than it should sometimes.
I always seem to spend more time on that task than I ever think that I will. And so I think that's one of the cool things that's kind of here. I'm inclined myself to use this on maybe some home screens or some very specific applications. So yeah, it's definitely neat. And you get to learn the new things and also the things that we have to do in order to overcome some of the limitations.
Workarounds. Hacks.
And then, yeah, you got the images because those are PNGs versus them all being hard-coded.
Correct. Well, those are containers with PNGs inside of them.
No, it is neat. Sorry, I'm myself a little bit enamored by what Jake created here. It does some cool stuff. Trying to find exactly where I'd use it. That's why I turned it on you, Jake, and I know you stumbled a little bit there. Like, where would you use this versus where wouldn't it? I can definitely think of some of the where wouldn'ts. But the where would's, I mean, it's got some cool implementations, especially if you have maybe only a small subset that typically needs to be used, but you maybe have an iPad or iPhone where turning it into the portrait mode or having some ability to expand would be useful. I'm going to guess you haven't tried this on WebDirect.
Oh, no, I haven't. I didn't think about WebDirect. I did literally everything but. I did iPad, iPhone, Mac, Windows.
So if it works good on those, it'll probably have issues there.
We could pull it up, do a little live experimentation.
No. Don't do that. Don't do that to yourself. We want to make the platform look good.
That's fair.
Yeah, one usage that I could see is in a production week and factory jobs from Monday to Friday and the columns in each department and the lines. Yeah, there's definitely some really cool uses for this for sure.
And then Jake, did you show us, I know Margaret and I both kind of asked about the configuring, but did you kind of show us how you would kind of build this? I know you said make your first portal, but if I wanted to go add this somewhere and I've got your file, do I just take your portal and duplicate it and add the script trigger on the layout?
You know, we've probably got enough time for me to go through an example of applying this to somewhere.
Yeah, like I would just whip out like a basic assets or contacts starter solution.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Do a little file create new action on it. Yeah, let's do contacts. Okay. So let's do a quick. All right, so even just completely starting from scratch, we've got a brand new table documents. We've got, just to make things a little easy, I'll throw in make it the same name. We've got the list of primary key summary field. On the contact side, we'll do GID or G, here, what was it? I'll just copy them directly from the other one. So I make sure the names are exactly the same. Copy, paste, grab the ID constant, make sure that's there too. Okay. Then we do ID constant, ID constant. This would work just as well too if you had primary key to foreign key. If you had any existing relationship, we can just pretend this part was already done. And you've got your contacts and the documents related to that contact or anything that's related to anything. Once that relationship exists, basically, will give us a spot to put this portal. Okay. So then we'll start with a portal related to our new one. And we'll just have one row on there. And then I should probably put some sort of a identifying field in there. We'll just do a title. If I had more time, I'd do like an actual document in there. And then we'll do allow creation. I want to be able, you can't do allow creation on the constants though. That's okay. I'll just make documents elsewhere.
You can change constant from a calculation to a number field with a self calc, and then you can create the relationship with it.
Takes too long for my brain to process what you just said than to do it the other way. Okay, so we'll get the related document, throw a title in there. And then for some consistency, I'll make the height and width of the portal 100. You can, of course, make it whatever you want. It would just be for one single record. And I'll go ahead and copy the filter. I have a feeling, I know there is one custom function that's in here, value position. That's the only custom function I believe that's in this entire thing. So we'll copy that first. Copy, manage custom functions, paste. Awesome. And then I've got the filter copied. And of course, it's going to yell at me for all of these since they don't exist. I don't have a custom filter here, so I'll get rid of that. This is the primary key. We'll pop that in. Basically, I'm just changing over all of the field names to match what's in here. And if you miss any of these, when you hit OK, FileMaker will yell at you and say there's a field not found. So there's the filter applied. There is the hidden filter that we need, or the hidden portal. So I'm going to go ahead and copy paste this, and we're going to have a button bar inside, which it might be a little bit easier to go ahead and just copy this. So on the portal at the very bottom here, I'll copy that button bar, paste it back in. Now what this is referencing is that Z IDs through the relationship. So we'll go context out and Z IDs, paste that in. And now that we have an object that's on here and it's called grid IDs, that's what this filter is referencing with the get layout object attribute grid IDs. It grabs the content of that button bar, so the result of the primary keys. And then what I usually do on here, just to kind of see, to make it hidden, I've got 10,000 padding on it, and I think the font color is white too. And I tend to just make it pretty small, and I have it in the background. So we'll send that to the back, and then to make sure it doesn't get deleted on accident, I'll lock it. So I think that's a lot of the prerequisites, and we can just kind of pretend that this portal looks pretty, looks how we'd want it to. If I were to duplicate that, all I need to change now is the column number. So in the filter, we'll change the column equals 1 to column equals 2. And the portals do need to be anchored to the bottom so that they expand as the layout gets bigger. In this case, I could actually have more rows since this layout's a little bit larger. So if we had 3 rows on each one, it'll work just the same, except now the minimum number of rows is 3. So we can just keep going on and on, as many as you'd like to go. Take a look at what that looks like for now. Should be blank since there aren't any records that exist. But if I go to documents and throw that title field on here, might need to refresh the window for the relationship to pop up. And it is a live stream, so something always goes wrong during them. Okay, grid IDs, number of columns, not equals column. Sure, the primary keys. Document, it's ID constant, ID constant. See what I'm missing here. I've got 1 minute to figure it out.
Oh, well, I'll allow you to go over a little bit longer if you need to. So,
Okay.
I don't know where Christian has to go, but I'm content to chill for an extra 10 to 15 minutes. I don't know how long you'll need.
I think it should be showing up right now. It's got the filter. It's got the... Oh, duh. The script trigger. So those two global fields that I just put in there, the columns and the rows, are currently empty and they need to be populated to work. So let's grab the script. There's only the one script that's in this file. Come on, script workspace. There you are. So we'll copy that. Copy, close that, and hop into the scripts on this contacts file. And we'll paste it. And then I'm going to go ahead and copy the parameter template. That's a variable that's up at the top, the parameter template. And we can go on back. And we'll do, so the script trigger is going to go on record load and on layout size change. And then we'll paste in this. I do remember that the portal height and the portal width were 100 each. Sometimes I have to do some jotting down to figure out what these ones are going to be. So let's do min 4, max of 8. And then we need the horizontal space and the vertical space. That one is going to be the layout height and the layout width minus 100. So 924 by 472. 924 by 472. And the width was...
Jake, take your time. You're doing great on this. I had to step away there temporarily. I do have to jump out actually to a meeting, but take your time on this. I think this part's actually really helpful. And I just want to thank everyone for their time. I haven't been here in a while, and it's always nice to see our live stream crowd.
Awesome. Thanks for hanging out and keeping things moving, Christian.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
922. Okay. Pretty sure I got those numbers right. 472, 924. I'll double check that. Yes. Okay. And then I'll go ahead and copy that parameter. We want that to be on record load and on layout size change. I'm looking at a record. I'm looking at one record. Okay, it's showing something now, but it's not quite working how I want it to.
Someone typed that they think that you're missing the relationship, but
should be able to use the existing relationship. Well, I made this relationship, contacts documents, and just made it from ID constant to ID constant. And that should work. I have tested this before with standard primary key to foreign key ones, but I know my initial demo just uses ID constant. That is, I think the relationship's good. I feel like it might be something maybe in the actual filter, but think about this for a second. A column 1 columns, primary key, grid IDs, content. Double check that that's working. And then I'll double the parameters on the other portals. That's not returning anything, and it should be. That might be what's wrong with it. So I'll go to my hidden portal. Is this button bar inside the portal? Did it sneak its way out? No, it's in there. Okay. And it's called Grid ID. Yep. And it contains on the portals based on the same relationship as this. It's called Grid IDs. Contacts, documents. Yep.
Someone suggested the parameters, maybe?
The filter on the portal. Yep, it is definitely the filter on the portal. So on the hidden portal, the only filter that should be on there is any extra ones, which in this case I deleted it. And it's kind of the whole reason why I had to have an extra portal. If I try to reference Z IDs from within the filter of the portal, it just doesn't work. If you try to reference a summary field in the filter of the same relationship that it's the portal's based off of, FileMaker just doesn't know what to do with it. So you take off the filter and then that's definitely the problem. So, and it's locked. Let me unlock it.
The back and forth.
Mm-hmm. Where we go? There's 4 records, and normally if you had a portal and you didn't have this filter applied, you just see record 1, record 2, record 3, record 4. We're seeing record 1 and record 4. And then we would see record 7 and 10 and 13 and the ones that should be in column 1, and so on and so forth with all of these. So if we wanted to keep this going, we could just, I've got my portal hidden here. We can just keep dragging on additional portals. Now that the fun heavy lifting part has been figured out, the script triggers assigned. There
you go.
Yeah.
Success.
Yeah.
No, this
Success.
is awesome.
Now, the script trigger is going to change that 3 hopefully to a 4. I think part of it too is the columns are really what drives it. These 2 global fields will say what. There we go. Now there's the 4.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, but it definitely takes a little bit of finagling. If anyone ever has any questions on this and is having fun implementing this, fun, quote unquote, feel free to reach out to support at RCC. Now that I'm coaching, I'd be happy to answer any questions about this. I will get bugged right away about an email sent to support about this demo.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. He'd be immediately added in our Slack and be like, Jake, go deal with what you've created. Yeah, wow, Jake, amazing. My compliments.
Tame your monster.
Good job. Great troubleshooting. Yeah, awesome. This has been awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. I'm seeing all this feedback. I appreciate you guys. I'm glad you guys like it. I'm sorry it's so complicated. I blame FileMaker.
It's the nature of the platform. Yeah, it is. In this case, it is the nature of the platform. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. We're going to let you go. Have a happy Thanksgiving if you're American, and to our Europeans, enjoy your week off from our live streams. Look forward to seeing you all on Monday. Talk about the 20.3 performance improvements with Hansa. Feel free to show up to that. I highly recommend it. Having Hansa on is always a treat. Okay, with that being said, I'm going to run my end credit music, and we will see you all later. Goodbye.
Thank you guys. Bye.
Got a report of an individual up here who may be a FileMaker license. Well, it's potentially expired. Look at the back of that car right there. Looks like the FileMaker license has expired. Sir, I need you to step out of the vehicle. Sir, step out of the vehicle. Sir!